I have a few comments for the budget, so if you could throw up those slides, I'd appreciate it. So I just want to give people, especially the new board members and staff really, because I don't think any of you were in this room in 2017, 4 years ago. You may have been substituting for the clerk and the deputy clerk who weren't here. But other than that, nobody else was here. So even those of you who were with the village weren't here for this. If you can flip to the next slide. So, you heard this talked about earlier, Kevin mentioned it. This was what was shown to me in the very first budget meeting, or just before it. And my jaw hit the floor. Because you can see the 2018 budget, 2017 preliminary, 2016, 2015, you can see the trajectory we were on, and we were projected by 2023 to be blown through our reserves and then some. What was worse is I found out that this chart had been there since 2012. They knew this was coming, and nothing was done to address it. So we've done a lot to address it, because you see that blue line at the top? That's where we're at now. Look at where we were projected to be, 2%, and that's where we're at now, even with all the capital projects we've done. So the team here is largely responsible for that, because a lot of these changes actually started going into place a couple of years ago. So, again, great work by everyone. What got put in place those first couple of years, and then continuing it these last couple of years. So flip to the next slide. This is also what we found out very early on. Joel, you've probably seen this. This was the projection in 2018 or 2017, that 40% of our roads were in poor condition. So you can see that, and you can see how many of them were in very poor. Almost half of that were in very poor condition. We actually recommended, and staying 2023, 10% still in very poor condition. It was actually recommended, flip to the next slide, that we go to this $8 million a year, which is where we're at now. The then board blocked it and did not do anything about it. So thank you to Trustees Healy, Milani, and Katsinas, because the very first thing that they did, the very first meeting, the night that they were sworn in, was pass an increase in this, so that we could be on this trajectory, so that in 2023 we can get back to a normal cycle. For that effort, they were within a week accused of being criminals by a sitting trustee. So they took a lot of heat for stepping up and doing the right thing, which is obvious to everyone in this room. It's obvious to most people with common sense, but that's the kind of stuff that happened. So it was not without a lot of grief that we got on this trajectory, but look where we're at now. If you look back, we're going to go back and look at it, but that first slide, we're there because, so we were able to do all this with our reserves and still fix our roads, because we made common sense decisions on our operating budget. Flip to the next slide. That shows you all the places we've gotten to in the village in just a couple of years. That's phenomenal. That doesn't even include 2021. I think that's just 2019 and 2020. So it'd be a lot more on there if it included 2021. Flip to the next slide. So here's the other thing that we found out, is these are renovated parks are in red. From 2007 to 2018, 12 years, we fixed 6 parks, and we've got 66 of them. So one every 2 years, it doesn't quite get the job done. Okay, that was something else we saw. So flip to the next slide. So we had an assessment done of all of our parks, and we changed the way we do things, and we got into our parks and fixed what needed to be fixed. Flip to the next slide. So in 2020 and 2021, because it took till then to get those things approved and put in place. Oh, by the way, they also blocked, the board at that time blocked spending more money on parks and blocked John Humphrey Complex, fixing that. So that was put off for 2 years. So in the last couple of years, 16 park renovations, 6 in 12 years, 16 in 2. And John Humphrey, a major one. Yes, we put more money against it, but we put more money against it and still fixed the budget and fixed our future. Flip to the next slide. So that goes back to what we were looking at. So we were able to fix all of those things and get ourselves to that reserve level because of the decisions that were made. So the decisions that we made, we reduced our operating budget. We took $52 million of debt off of our books. We reduced our full and part-time employees. We improved a lot of efficiency, as you know. We weathered COVID, which was no small feat. And yet we still made all those investments in roads and in parks, and now we're doing the buildings this next year. We're finally getting to that, and we're finally catching up on our vehicles. Because as we saw, they're at 14.9 years old, because they were in the same shape our roads were and our parks. I can't emphasize enough that putting the right people up here and in office everywhere throughout the country keeps government focused on what it's supposed to do, and it can pay great dividends. It didn't take us long, and we did it through COVID. 4 years, and we were able to fix this. 4 years. Now, it helps that we have a strong village, and we have a strong retail base, but it couldn't have been done without making those right decisions. We could have been going right down that same path. So, it's important to have people that make common sense decisions. It's important to put people in all those positions. Look at those results. I mean, it speaks for itself. Making good decisions. We were able to put over 10. We were able to take over $10 million of extra reserves that we weren't even supposed to have and put those to capital projects like buildings for next year. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't even include that $8 million of those projects were projects that were also ignored prior to any of us being on the board floor. Dr. Marsh, the Tinley Creek stabilization, and several other projects in there that were also kicked down the road. So most of what we're taking on our reserves is still fixing the past. But we're able to do that because we made good decisions. It can be done. I am extremely proud of staff for all your hard work in making this happen. Making the operations happen, making the operations improvements happen, doing this all through COVID. And I'm incredibly proud of our board as well for the hard work that you took, and for the three of you who took a bunch of arrows your first year in particular to get here, because those were not easy decisions. I mean, you did it on your very first meeting. You took the shots on your very first meeting because you knew it was the right thing. So I can't emphasize enough that thank you all enough for putting us on a positive trajectory